I'm going to tell you guys exactly how Dustin Poirier can get his hand raised in the main event of UFC 302. It's not going to be easy, but I do have the recipe for Poirier to get his hand raised. He's taken on the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world in Islam Makhachev, a teammate of Khabib Nurmagomedov, a fighter, of course, that you all are very familiar with, the fighter that Dustin Poirier had his first attempt to win the lightweight championship of the world against, and he came up short, got submitted in the third round, and that's something that DP has been familiar with, getting subbed in the third round in big fights. It happened in the Charles Oliveira fight as well. But I'm telling you guys, I did find the recipe for Dustin Poirier to get his hand raised. And before I tell you how DP can get this fight done, just note we are powered by BETUS. Make a deposit through the link in the description of this video. Get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. All right, guys, just letting you know that real quick. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you how DP can get the job done. So Poirier comes into this fight off a huge victory where he finished BSD in the second round. And stylistically, there are some comparisons from BSD to Islam Makhachev. So I do like that he just kind of had a warm-up fight for this type of affair. A very well-rounded fighter, fighting out of the southpaw stance, who can knock you out on the feet, who can hurt you there, but can also impose his physicality, take you down, and use his grappling skills in BSD. Obviously, Islam Makhachev is a way better version of BSD, but still, I like the fact that Poirier just had that tune-up fight there. And understand, in that fight, essentially, Dustin Poirier's championship aspirations were on the line. If he would have lost that fight, I think that you could have safely said that DP was never going to get another shot at the title. He would have been on a 2-fight losing skid. He's 35 years old. It would have been really tough for him. So that was a huge victory for him. We'll talk a little bit more about that fight here in a second. But I do believe that Dustin Poirier rightfully deserves this title shot for taking that fight first and foremost against an up-and-coming contender who's so dangerous that nobody wanted to face in Benoit Saint-Denis. To take that fight, go out there, get a victory. He's 35 years old. He's been putting in so much work throughout the years. He has a big name. I think it was definitely the fight to make. Charles Oliveira just takes a recent loss, so you can't say Oliveira. Besides that, you could say Arman Tsarukyan potentially, but Arman Tsarukyan's still so young. There's time to set up the rematch for Arman and Islam. So this is the fight that should have been made, and it was the right move here. Okay, there's another fighter that's working his way towards a potential shot. You see DP's been getting in work with him. That's another thing that I like for DP here, training with the fighter like Mateusz Gamrot, a fighter that has very strong grappling, pushes the pace very hard, needs to continue to refine his overall skill set, but still getting in work with solid fighters. Now, I won't make you guys anticipate my answer too much longer. I'm going to tell you right now, DP needs to make this fight a war, and he needs to clip Islam with a nice right hook in this fight, okay? That's exactly what was the fight-ending strike, essentially, in the BSD fight. That nice lead right hook of Dustin Poirier. And not a lot of people know this, but DP is actually naturally an orthodox fighter, so that is his power hand that he will have in front of him at times. So he generates a lot of power with that step-in hook, or just however he wants to land it. When he lands it, it hurts. It puts people out. Now, also note this. In Islam Makhachev's loss, his lone loss to Adriano Martins, if some of you guys remember watching that fight, of course, you know the teller was watching it live with the boys because, I guess you guys call me an old fogue these days. I guess I'm old. I've been watching all these fights from way back. Some of you guys might have not have been even watching the UFC back then. The fight did take place back in, get that for you guys real quick. That fight took place back in 2015. It's kind of crazy to think, almost a decade ago. Seems like it was just yesterday. The knockout that Adriano Martins landed in that fight, what do you think it was? Fighting out of the southpaw stance with his lead right hook was the strike that put Makhachev out. Now, obviously, Makhachev is a completely different fighter compared to what he was in the Martins fight. I mean, I just rewatched that fight, and Islam was essentially a shell of himself in a way. I mean, he's just so much more refined defensively now than he was, and even offensively, of course, coming off the spectacular first-round knockout of Alexander Volkanovski, where he landed that nasty head kick. Of course, this is not going to be an easy task, but I do believe that there is a path to victory for Poirier. And it's going to be using his cardio, stuffing takedowns, and making this a war. I do not want to see him throwing up, I don't want to see him attacking at all with the guillotine. I don't want to see that move being used at all unless he's just essentially using it defensively to stuff takedowns in one way or another and to get back up to his feet, which I still don't even think it's that good of a move. I want to see DP specifically using his boxing in this fight, sprawling and brawling. I hope he's just continuously training takedown defense for this fight. If he can keep it standing, he has a puncher's chance in this fight. Okay, he has nasty striking, and as this fight goes to the later rounds, or maybe even early on, really you could spin it either way. Or he can catch him early on when they're fresher, or maybe if it goes to the later rounds, he could potentially clip Islam in a nasty type of brawl. We did see Islam breathing very heavily in the Volkanovski fight the first time around, but look at the way he fine-tuned himself for the rematch there. But I mean, you could say the same thing about Dustin Poirier, though. When some of these fights go late and the grappling exchanges, he tends to fade and get submitted. And I'll let you guys know right now, I am favoring Islam Makhachev getting a third round finish in this fight. That's the way I'm going to go. And potentially even in the second round, maybe even a little earlier than some of those other big losses that DP has taken. Actually, I'm going to switch that. Second round finish for Islam Makhachev. So I hate to rain on your guys' parade as we talk about how DP can get the job done here, but you guys know I got to keep it real with you. I think Islam finds the finish in the second round, and I'm actually going to say that he's going to find a submission. I think he actually gets the sub here. I know his striking's been looking better, but I think eventually he gets this fight down to the mat and he finds a sub, and he'll land some big shots as well, but I think he'll have success after hurting DP, sinking in some type of rear naked choke possibly or something like that, and that could fall in the second or third round. But also note there is a realistic chance that the TKO happens, of course. DP was just knocked out brutally in the fight before his last win against Justin Gaethje via head kick, and Islam just landed a nasty head kick. So keep an eye out for the head kick as well. Both of those scenarios are very likely, but I do have Islam finishing this fight in the second or third. That I say very confidently. But we take a look at the betting line here. Islam opened up as a minus 440 on BETUS, went all the way down to a minus 560 and has came all the way back up to a minus 450. So what do I think of this betting line here? I think that the line is more accurate right around minus 500 flat. Okay. I think once you start getting past 500 and you start dipping up to 560, 600, I think you can be pushing it. And once you start getting under that, I think that you could potentially argue that there's some value as a parlay piece for Islam, especially once you're getting down to minus 400. If you're getting into minus 300s, I think that you might want to jump on that. That's how I'm feeling about this line. That Poirier, he has a possibility to land that strike, but it's not going to be super likely. And for DP's guillotine, let's just talk about that for a second, because he cannot help himself from pulling that attack constantly when he's in the cage. It cost him in the Nurmagomedov fight, essentially. That was the beginning of his demise in that fight. It's a very hard choke to lock up and finish. Okay, now when you're in the gym and you're training with amateurs and whatnot, it's a very fun choke. It's an easy choke. It's one of the first submissions I learned in the gym that I was pulling off left and right. It was my patent move. You guys know that. You see it in my little intro video on the channel. I love pulling the guillotine, especially on people that didn't know how to defend it. It was an easy attack to pull off. But in the UFC, with such high caliber of fighters, they know how to defend that move. It's just such a low percentage submission. You also have to note, DP has never finished one guillotine in his professional career. So, I find that pretty crazy. If we want to play devil's advocate with that, though, I will say this. If somehow this fight goes to the fourth, fifth rounds and Islam Makhachev is breathing heavily and gasses out in this fight, similarly to what he did in the Volkanovski fight, if DP was fresh, if somehow he was able to pull a rabbit out of his hat, and if there was a similar type of Islam, how he looked in that fifth round, if DP was put in a position where he had that fully locked in, had him completely locked up with his legs and everything, torquing on that guillotine, I could potentially see that happening, but very unlikely, especially when they're sweaty and whatnot. And there's DP training at my old beach where I grew up on that beach right there, Deerfield Beach. And I used to watch movies out here when I was a kid. on the big old, what do you call that? The projection screen. When I was a kid, we'd be jumping off these in the back. This was my old beach right here. Changed a lot throughout the years. But listen, I'm rooting for DP, but I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. Islam only absorbing 1.27 strikes per minute in the octagon. He's just so defensively sound. Ever since that Martins loss, I mean, he just fine-tuned so many things, and I think that was a fluke of a fight. DP absorbing a lot, but also has a lot more output, but I think that he will be there to be countered. And who do you guys have winning this fight? What do you guys think about what we talked about here? I'm very curious if anyone finds true value on Poirier, and if anybody's slamming that line. I really would love to hear in the comment section. Let me know.
This video is brought to you by BETUS Sportsbook and Casino.
I appreciate you guys tuning in for this little preview. If you're looking for the full card prediction for this card, it will be uploaded very soon to the channel. We'll have the whole card done up. You guys know what time it is. We'll be sunken into our seats, and we'll sit down for at least an hour, and we'll dissect every single fight on this card. If you're new to the channel, you're going to want to subscribe. We got a lot of content coming your guys' way, and I hope UFC 302 is as good to me as UFC Vegas 92 was, as we hit the clean sweep on that card. And if you guys want to see the plays I targeted, make sure you're following me on IG at MMA_fortuneteller_, where I put out a pretty comical video. I don't know, at least I thought it was funny. You guys let me know. Go check my last post there on Instagram, where I was hop skipping around having a good time. Well, we had a great night cashing bets, but we got plenty of units to play with going in to UFC 302 after all the profits we just brought in. And I hope you guys are all doing good with your bankroll out there, and you guys are all cashing for UFC 302. If you want to work with me for my official plays, don't hesitate to reach out. You guys know you could do that as well. All right, guys, have a great week. Actually, have a great day or two, because you're going to be seeing a lot of my face leading up to UFC 302. I got a lot of solid content coming your guys' way. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.